When we think of classic Hollywood, we picture elegance, charm, and glamour. But behind the velvet curtains and black and white reels, some stars were stacking serious fortunes, quietly building empires while the world focused on their on-screen magic. These weren't just actors. They were moguls, investors, and master strategists. Some played the long game, while others simply struck gold through fame alone. What's shocking, though, is how wealthy some of them were. Richer than most modern celebrities could even dream. In an era before massive brand deals, streaming royalties, and billion-dollar franchises, how did these stars manage to rake in millions? Get ready to dive into the secret bank accounts, luxury lifestyles, and unexpected business moves of 10 Golden Age icons who didn't just die famous, they died filthy rich. And wait until you hear who tops the list, because no one expected that star to be worth a fortune when the cameras stopped rolling. Let's jump in. Mary Pickford wasn't just a silent film sweetheart, she was a business powerhouse. Co-founding United Artists alongside Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks in 1919, Pickford took control of her own movies in an era when actresses were treated as disposable. She owned her films, negotiated smart contracts, and built a real estate empire on the side. Pickford's income wasn't just from acting. She was one of the first to realize that owning your image could be far more lucrative than being on camera. Her equity in United Artists alone was worth millions. She also bought up properties in Beverly Hills before it became a playground for the rich, selling them off later at massive profits. At the time of her death in 1979, Pickford's estate was estimated to be worth around $40 million, equivalent to over $160 million today. Not bad for someone who started in vaudeville as a teenager. But Mary wasn't done rewriting the rules of the game. Everyone remembers Bing Crosby for his smooth voice and timeless Christmas hits, but few realize he was a financial juggernaut. While most stars lived paycheck to paycheck between roles, Crosby built a business empire that made him richer than some studio heads. Crosby was one of the first entertainers to take residuals seriously, negotiating smart deals for film and radio reruns. But the real jackpot, his investment in Ampex, the company that pioneered videotape technology. When TV networks scrambled to adopt this revolutionary tech, Crosby made a fortune. He also co-owned Horse Tracks, a chain of Minute Maid orange juice franchises, and even helped bankroll the original Disneyland concept. By the time he passed away in 1977, Bing's net worth was estimated at over $150 million. That's nearly $500 million today. Crosby might have crooned about a white Christmas, but his bank account stayed evergreen. Lucille Ball wasn't just America's favorite redhead, she was one of Hollywood's most brilliant businesswomen. While starring in I Love Lucy, Ball co-founded Desilu Productions with her then-husband Desi Arnaz. What started as a way to produce their show became a TV empire. Desilu didn't just create I Love Lucy, it later produced mega hits like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. When Ball bought out Desi's share in 1962, she became the first woman to run a major TV studio. She eventually sold Desilu for $17 million in 1967, worth over $150 million today. But Lucy didn't stop there. She held stock, invested in real estate, and continued acting well into her golden years. At the time of her death in 1989, her estate was valued at around $60 million. Lucille Ball wasn't just comedy royalty, she was Hollywood's quiet tycoon. Bob Hope cracked jokes for decades, but his real punchline came in the form of property. While performing for troops and headlining countless specials, Hope quietly bought land, a lot of it. He was one of the biggest landowners in California, with properties spread across the San Fernando Valley, Palm Springs, and Malibu. Some reports claimed he owned more than $100 million worth of real estate at the time of his death in 2003. Hope's investments began during the Great Depression, when land was cheap and optimism was even cheaper. He never stopped buying. As the California market exploded, so did Hope's net worth. While most people remember his wisecracks, the IRS remembered his balance sheets. When he passed at age 100, Bob Hope left behind an estate valued at over $150 million. And nearly all of it had nothing to do with entertainment. Elizabeth Taylor was more than just a beauty icon. She was a branding genius. While her film paychecks were impressive, she was the first actress to earn $1 million for a single role. Her real fortune came from her perfume line and business ventures. Taylor's fragrance, White Diamonds, became one of the best-selling celebrity perfumes of all time. Even decades after launch, it was generating over $60 million a year in revenue. She was also smart with her estate. Taylor had investments in art, real estate, and luxury goods. And let's not forget her legendary jewelry collection, including the 69-carat Taylor Burton diamond, valued at over $1 million alone. At the time of her death in 2011, Elizabeth Taylor's net worth was estimated to be between $600 and $800 million, depending on appraisals of her art and jewelry. She didn't just live like a queen, she passed as one too. Paul Newman had the kind of charisma that lit up the screen, but it was his post-acting career that really paid off unexpectedly. In the early 1980s, Newman launched a humble line of salad dressings using his own homemade recipes. The brand, Newman's Own, what began as a side project exploded into a food empire. From pasta sauces to lemonade, the products flew off shelves. But here's the twist: Paul donated 100% of the profits to charity. And we're not talking pennies. By the time of his death in 2008, Newman's Own had raised over $250 million for causes around the world. Despite his philanthropy, Paul still left behind an impressive estate, over $600 million, including properties, art collections, and other smart investments. He lived modestly, often wearing old jeans and flying economy, but his legacy was anything but humble. Newman showed the world you could do good and do well, and no one saw it coming. Audrey Hepburn seemed too graceful to care about money, but she was quietly sharp when it came to handling her wealth. While other stars blew fortunes on parties and penthouses, Audrey invested in privacy, property, and purposeful living. She made wise real estate purchases, including a sprawling estate in Switzerland, where she spent the last years of her life. She also continued to earn from her iconic film roles thanks to smart residual deals, especially for Breakfast at Tiffany's, which remains a fashion staple. But Audrey's greatest value may have come after her passing. Her estate earned millions from licensing her image, used in fashion, art, commercials, and more. Between 1993 and the 2000s, her likeness generated tens of millions for her heirs and charities. At the time of her death, Audrey Hepburn's estate was worth around $55 million. But since then, it's multiplied. She might have lived simply, but her value kept rising, proof that true elegance never goes out of style. Marlon Brando was known for being unpredictable on and off screen. But even with his eccentric lifestyle and legal battles, he left behind a massive fortune. Brando earned big in the 1950s and 60s but hit the jackpot in the 1970s with The Godfather and Superman. He negotiated a percentage of profits rather than a flat fee, resulting in a multi-million-dollar windfall. He also owned real estate across California and an entire private island in Tahiti. Despite his chaotic personal life, including lawsuits and family drama, Brando managed to keep control of his financial legacy. At the time of his death in 2004, his estate was valued at over $100 million. But here's where it gets crazier. His name and likeness rights were later sold for nearly $30 million. Even in death, Brando's rebellious image was a goldmine. He didn't just leave a mark on cinema, he left one on the balance sheets too. Fred Astaire floated across the screen with such ease, you think he had no worries in the world. But behind the tap shoes and tuxedos, Astaire was a master of smart money moves. Astaire took control of his performances early on, negotiating for ownership stakes in some of his films and choosing to appear only in projects that offered long-term value. But his biggest win, his investments in racehorses and the stock market. Friends said he followed Wall Street like other actors followed scripts. He was also an early adopter of owning licensing rights to his image. Long before digital rights were a thing, Astaire ensured that commercials, merchandise, and posthumous projects required estate approval, earning steady cash for decades after his last dance. By the time he passed in 1987, Fred Astaire's estate was worth upwards of $75 million. Not bad for a guy who made dancing across a floor look effortless. He barely spoke a word on screen, but Charlie Chaplin was shouting in the language of wealth. One of the earliest international stars, Chaplin was also one of the savviest. In 1919, he co-founded United Artists, giving him unprecedented control over his films, profits, and creative rights. While other actors took orders, Chaplin called the shots. He directed, wrote, starred in, and owned his films, leading to massive earnings from every corner of production. He also invested in art, rare books, and European real estate. After being exiled from the U.S. during the Red Scare, Chaplin moved to Switzerland, but his money kept rolling in. Posthumously, his estate has sold the rights to re-release many of his films, plus exclusive image deals, bringing in millions. At the time of his death in 1977, Chaplin's estate was valued at over $100 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's close to $500 million today. And there you have it, 10 Golden Age legends who didn't just light up the screen but built fortunes that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. These stars weren't just actors, they were visionaries who knew how to turn fame into fortune. If you found their stories as surprising as we did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more untold tales from Hollywood's most iconic figures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video full of secrets, scandals, and cinematic legends.